Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on this Monday, March 10th. LA Galaxy 3-0 losers to St. Louis. Again, that's 4 games in a row, 3 league games, no wins, only 1 goal. The LA Galaxy getting shut out. And it didn't look pretty at sometimes, but also, I'm going to say it. It's okay. I feel confident in what I say. It was their best game they played all year. They lose 3-0, and it was the best game they played all year. That's something we're probably going to have to talk about. LA Galaxy getting ready for Herediano coming up in the middle of the week. So that's coming up as well. And then the LA Galaxy off to Portland on the weekend. So a lot of traveling, a lot of stuff to happen. We're going to talk about all of it as we get you ready, including some of that GAM, TAM, all the contract stuff we can get you updated on. To help me do all that, he's out in Arizona right now, doing his spring training thing, his NASCAR thing. We're glad to have him on. It's Mr. Kevin, the Panda Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
Hey, this hotel Wi-Fi is really iffy, so we'll see how far we get through this. By the way, if you haven't stayed in a hotel since COVID, or not many times, do you know they don't do housekeeping every day anymore?
Yeah, by the way, thank God, because besides towels, what else do you need? And by the way, let's not all pretend like we don't use the same towel at home for the whole week, and sometimes longer, but I don't want to say that, right? I mean, it's not a crazy thing to say. Was it news to you? Were you upset?
No. I spent a lot of nights in hotels. It's just every once in a while I start to think, wait a minute, we're paying more, in this case, way more. In fact, I'm in Tempe, which I'll get to in just a moment. I'm in Tempe, and the Dodgers are in Glendale. I have to drive all the way across the valley just because hotels here are so darn expensive. So I'm paying a lot of money for this. Well, my company is paying a lot of money for this hotel room, and all of a sudden they get less service than I used to. They didn't bring the prices down. Right. And what I was going to say about Tempe is I had a chance to go over to ASU, and I saw the Josh Guesman plaque on the wall there.
As there should be.
That was nice. That was nice that they did that, especially since you never graduated. But really nice they did that anyways.
It was in the men's room, though. That's the whole thing. You have to. It's in the the plaque for the alternate is in the men's room. That's what I heard. There's nothing special about my time, by the way, in Arizona State. I went. I came, I conquered, I left. I did all that in 4.5 years. Lucky me.
I was going to make a connection because I was thinking about this today. You mentioned them at spring training. So I've been seeing the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, this lineup is intense. They're going to play a lot of 4-hour games. And I started thinking about, the Red Sox back in the day used to play 3 years before Harvard Miller was born when they won the World Series, right, and reversed the curse. They used to play 4-hour games all the time because that lineup was just so deep. Manny, Big Papi, Jason Varitek, Bill Miller, Johnny Damon, all these guys. The Dodger lineup is a lot like that. It just continues. There's just another guy and another guy, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Shohei. But the comparison I was going to make to the Galaxy is you take 2 of the guys out of that Dodger lineup, as good as it is. If you say you take Mookie Betts and Shohei out of that lineup, it's a totally different team. And so you look at the Galaxy and you say, Galaxy's really good. Okay, we'll take Ricky and Joseph Paintsell out of that team. Yeah. Not as good anymore.
No.
And so, And the Dodgers, like the Galaxy, reigning world champions or, well, league champions.
Right.
For all the talk about parity in MLS and the salary cap, there have been two teams that have won back-to-back MLS Cups since 2008, right? Houston did it 7 and 8, and the Galaxy did it in 2011, 2012. Do you know there hasn't been a repeat winner in baseball this century? The last were the Yankees in 99 and 2000. And there is no salary cap. You can spend like a drunken sailor, which the Dodgers do. So I'm beginning to wonder about this salary cap thing in Major League Soccer, whether it really does induce parity, because we've had more repeat champions here than they've had in baseball, where they spend like crazy.
Well, I'll say this about baseball is that the playoffs are much more limited, right? So it's harder to make the playoffs, therefore harder to repeat, all that sort of stuff to sort of watch. I don't disagree with you that maybe there is something that we're not accounting for in this parity-driven league and what they're trying to do with it and everything that's going on. I mean, listen, we're going to talk today, and it just a preview. By the way, I want to be upfront. I did not tell Kevin any of the salary cap stuff that I'm going to talk about today because I wanted you to be as inquisitive as our listeners. That way I could explain it, and if it made sense to you, then, well, I mean, it would be the first time it ever made sense to you.
Nothing makes sense to me.
Right? So,
well, I saw a thing on Twitter today from Alexei Lawless, and he was talking about the Galaxy and their problems in coming back because of all the machinations that Will Kuntz had to go through to get under the salary cap. He posed an interesting question, and maybe this is a way to look at least the early season struggles. He said, would you rather have an MLS Cup champion followed by a poor season, or would you rather have 2 really good years where you don't win an MLS Cup?
Right. No, there was definitely something, and again, it's something that I don't think has been talked about enough. The LA Galaxy, midway through last year, said, we think we're going to be good enough that we're going all in. And they knew what was coming. Like, they knew the contract situations that were going to hit them more than likely the next year, this year. Right. And so they knew that this was the last chance to sort of keep this team together and go for it. And they went for it. And some people, I think, would, just by the way the LA Galaxy started, and by the way, the worst start ever for a defending MLS Cup champion. The LA Galaxy, their 0-3 start in league ties them for the worst ever in club history. And the last time they had that happen was in 1997. So you can say in the modern era, no LA Galaxy team has started 0-3. So that's something new and exciting and fun, but technically tied with the 97 team that didn't have draws. So it was just wins or losses. I for some reason, I would imagine the probability takes a little hit of going 0-3 is a little easier to do whenever you don't have draws as an equation in there as well. So looking at all those things, but I think the Galaxy saw what was coming, and they're like, we have a chance to get it. Marco Reus was part of that, and people want to pretend that Marco Reus was not a factor last year, and I'll disagree with that and say that he was a factor last year. I just think that he was brought in to be sort of a finishing piece to the LA Galaxy, and now he's being asked to do a much different role. Eric and I talked about that on Thursday, so I'm sure we'll talk about that in the game. But bottom line is the Galaxy and Will Kuntz and Greg Vanney knew what was coming in 2025. Some of that is going to be stuff that happened before Will Kuntz. And some of that is going to be stuff that happened under Will Kuntz, right? So it's still a matter of the LA Galaxy cleaning up some things, and I think we'll talk about how that all goes whenever we get there. But first, I know you didn't get to watch the game, Kevin, but you did get to look at highlights and do all that fun stuff. You asked me whenever we got on, was it as bad as it sounded, right? The 3-0 beating the whole deal. And I said, absolutely not. I said the Galaxy probably should have won that game. Does that surprise you to hear that a team loses 3-0? I mean, it should, but that I would come on here and say, and I think I'm a pretty good judge of LA Galaxy character here, that was the best game the LA Galaxy have played this year?
No, I was kind of following it online, and I was looking at a lot of the stats, and it looked like statistically the Galaxy kind of dominated that game. They had a lot of shots, they had a lot of possession again, which is the way they like to play. So those were all good signs. They had a lot of shots on goal, or more than they've had in the past, weeks this season. So it looked like everything was going their way statistically, but on the scoreboard it was totally different. And St. Louis hadn't scored a goal all season coming in, and they get 3 against the Galaxy.
Yeah, it is, it's one of those weird things that sort of happens. We did the meetup at halftime, and we talked to everybody, and we were I think everybody in that circle was sort of expecting the Galaxy to score a goal and sort of find their way back into that game. Did not happen. Giving up a goal.
Didn't they hit the post twice?
Yeah, they did hit the post twice. The big one was from Marco Reus early in that first set. This was the first time I remember in the first 4 games that we've watched that I saw sustained waves of attack from the LA Galaxy and putting pressure on St. Louis. Greg Vanney said after the game, Kevin, he said that the LA Galaxy let St. Louis back into the game, and St. Louis was a team that couldn't find the ball and had basically no idea how to get it. And that is an accurate representation of about 40-something minutes of the first half, right up until the 44th minute whenever St. Louis goes up 1-0 on a communication mistake. By the way, Greg Vanney points out there was a communication mistake slightly before that, 5 minutes earlier. So there's things that are happening right now that are certainly not helping the LA Galaxy out. The injuries continue to be a thing, and as I wrote, because I actually wrote a little notes and quotes for this game. I felt like I had the time, so I put some notes and quotes up on cornerofthegalaxy.com. But I wrote that this team will get better, but they have to get healthier first. But there were some high spots and some highlights in this game. So I think we can talk about some of those highlights because I think they're a little surprising. I don't think that we could have counted on the LA Galaxy having some real bright spots. And it starts with sort of that starting lineup and who Greg Vanney chose to go into the center. And one of those that he had in there was Isaiah Parente. And Isaiah Parente, for me, is going to be the highlight. The LA Galaxy started Christian Ramirez up top. They had Marco Reus, Isaiah Parente, Diego Fagundes, Gabriel Pec, Edwin Cerrillo in the center there. And then it was Nelson, Yoshida, Garces, and Harbor Miller reprising his role at right back. And we can talk and say wonderful things about Harbor Miller as well. And then it was Novak Mitrovic back in goal after John McCarthy is getting these CONCACAF Champions League minutes. So that's what we saw from the lineup. I will talk about Isaiah Parente first, if you don't mind. He is. It was one of those times where we looked and we saw a guy who you didn't know what you were going to get. And I know a lot of people have watched him play at Ventura County and sort of had the good idea, but until you get up into the bright lights under these professional atmospheres, what's really going to happen with some of this stuff? What's really going to happen with Isaiah Parente and how is he really going to play? What we saw from Isaiah Parente was a kid who was comfortable on the turn. We saw a guy who was able to dish and find connections. He made more passes than anybody else on the field. I think 110 passes, 94% completion rate, and was able to involve guys that we have not seen been involved yet. And that's something that I don't know that we could have anticipated whenever it comes to all of this. I don't know that we could have anticipated that Isaiah Parente was going to be the guy who was able to turn and find spaces and do those things. Kevin, did we get you back there? I know we lost.
I'm here.
Okay, good. We're going to put you on the phone instead, just because I think that might work better. So I was prepped for that, so not to worry. No, I was talking about Isaiah Parente and being the guy who we've seen sort of be the biggest sort of surprise in that whole thing. Able to get Marco Reus involved. We talked about earlier here, Kevin, was just Marco Reus bouncing stuff off the post, right? So for me, it was about involving more people. Diego Fagundes was more involved with Isaiah Parente in there. Would like to see more out of what they can do and what they can combine. And how they do that. But the bottom line is that Isaiah Parente was a bright spot. He's a guy who going forward now has that spot in central midfield, especially with Sanabria out. Greg Vanney said afterwards that, he did a lot of work. Parente did, that now that sort of allows Greg to slot him in there and gives him options in other places. So in one game, a relatively young kid comes in and sort of puts his stamp of approval on everything that's going on. And now all of a sudden, Kevin, you have a young guy like Isaiah Parente who's getting guys like Marco Reus involved.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, Marco Reus talked about it afterwards, and you and I talked about it last week, is when you talk about the two balls that hit the post and the way the Galaxy were kind of, I don't want to say dominating that game. You were there. You can say dominating that game, but at least in control or competitive in that game. And then they hit the post twice, and they're really, pushing for the equalizer, and then they give up that second goal, and things kind of turned around after that. But Marco Reus afterwards talked about, look, we need something positive to happen, and you and I talked about that last week. They need something to go their way. If one of those balls doesn't hit the post and goes in, it's a different game. The Galaxy don't necessarily need to win a game right now, but they need to feel good about themselves. Right now, I think they just feel like everything is going wrong. And when you hit the post twice in a game, when you're in it up until about the 70th minute and you hit the post twice, you got to start thinking like, wow, are we ever going to catch a break?
Yeah, I'll say Marco Reus said specifically, we need a win, right? I think he was sort of saying it doesn't matter how it happens. We just need some good luck is sort of what he was trying to hint at there. But no, I mean, the Galaxy were dominating a lot of that first half. You saw the possession was good. You saw the passing was good. The creativity was off the charts for what we've seen so far in 2025. So everything sort of felt good. And then we have to go into the mistake that cost the LA Galaxy. Again, Greg Vanney saying that basically, they gifted St. Louis back into this game. And it comes off a set piece. And we can certainly talk about set pieces and all the things, but there's a mixture of what Vanney asked the guys to do. There's some man markers and there's some zonal markers. And so the ball gets sort of played front post, and St. Louis puts a lot of bodies in front of Mitrovic. Mitrovic goes up to get the ball and collides with Yoshida. Yoshida also going up for the ball at that time. The ball sort of falls down at Mitrovic's feet. Emi Garces clears it off the line as it starts rolling towards it, but it goes right back to St. Louis. I think St. Louis had one other shot in there, and then from sort of the backside of the formation, waiting for the ball to squirt out there, St. Louis was able to bury that into the back of the net. There's a very famous video right now, I know, because Taylor Twellman put it out, and Sasha Kleshkin commented on it, and I've been seeing it over and over again, of Marco Reus playing his favorite statue there on the back. In fact, the best comment I saw, Kevin, by the way, was, look, Marco Reus got a statue before Kobe Jones. Because I thought that was great, by the way. Even if I disagree with the overall premise of it, I thought it was a really great joke. But no, seeing what, watching that come from the back post and Marco Reus being there, and then St. Louis going ahead in the 44th minute. It's those mistakes, an absolute, buggery that we've seen from the LA Galaxy in times, the self-sabotage that we've seen. Greg Vanney afterwards, and I felt the same way, Greg Vanney afterwards laid this at the feet of Novak Mitrovic. If you're going to be a goalkeeper, you go early, you go hard, and you communicate whenever you do it, paraphrasing Greg Vanney. And I think in that case, there was not enough communication there, that he didn't go early. He didn't go hard. Yes, he had some St. Louis players to get around, but ultimately Maya Yoshida has to go for that ball if Mitrovic isn't going to get there. And it was sort of an if of whether or not Mitrovic is going to get there, and the Galaxy get unlucky. The ball falls directly down onto the feet, almost on the goal line, and puts the ball in on the backside. And should Marco Reus have covered his guy? Sure. I think that's absolutely something that you could ask him to do, Kevin. But at the same time, how did that ball get to where it wasn't a very dangerous place? And if you even listen to the announcers during the call, they call it that Mitrovic has the ball. He should have gotten to the ball. He didn't get to the ball. And because of his indecision, because of the fact that he didn't get out there, Yoshida goes up for a header to try to do, because as Vanney explained, if you're a zone guy, you're going to go to the ball. That's your job. Is to go to the ball in that particular case. So of all the follies that break down there, it all starts with Mitrovic. And I have less issue with that, Kevin, just because I think he's a younger player and he's going to make mistakes. But there was a cross that happened in stoppage time about 3 minutes later where St. Louis should have gone up 2-0, and Mitrovic, clearly shell-shocked from it, did not come out, try to grab that ball at all. That ball is floating across the top of the 6-yard box, and Mitrovic just stayed home and waited for it to come down right on a St. Louis player's head. So I think, we've sort of been going back and forth about whether or not the LA Galaxy have a goalkeeping controversy. I think we are now well within goalkeeping controversy status here, Kevin.
Well,
I mean, we have been. Yeah.
I'm not so sure it's a controversy anymore. I mean, I think they need to make the change, and it's going to be life-changing, shattering for Mitrovic, because he's waited for this opportunity now at least for 2 years. And the Galaxy, maybe if they turn things around, start playing better, maybe he gets another chance later in the season. He's given up 7 goals in 3 games. I mean, he's on pace to shatter the MLS record for most goals allowed in a season. And at least two of the goals, you can argue maybe more, at least 2 of the goals came on plays where he made a mistake, as he did on this one. There was the one when he lined the ball off Garces, and that led to a goal. So it's been whether it's communication, whether it's indecision, whatever it is, it's cost the Galaxy at least 2 goals. and he doesn't seem to have he doesn't seem to be communicating well with his back line at all. I just think at this point that change has to be made. I thought John McCarthy played pretty well in the game in Costa Rica. I would guess he's going to get the start Wednesday. You already have Greg Vanney being publicly kind of critical of Novak, so I think you have to make the change now, and then you really have to start worrying about your young goalkeeper's confidence and his mentality and whether he can come back from this. Here, as we mentioned before, talking about last season, Jonathan Bond went on and became a really good goalkeeper somewhere else. He was just in a bad situation with the Galaxy, and things didn't look like they were going to work out for him here for whatever reason. It's not that he didn't want to be here and didn't want to play, but it just didn't happen, and he went somewhere else, and things got a little bit better. Maybe that's what has to happen with Mikovic, but John McCarthy's got to start. They got to turn this thing around, and if they go on a long run, maybe they bring him back and give him another chance. But I think they got it. It's not desperation time yet, but they, as Marco Roy said, they've got to get a win. They've got to do something positive.
Yeah. Greg Vanney said decisions are not going to be in the emotion of the moment after he was asked about whether or not Mitrovic or McCarthy, whether or not he was going to do a goalkeeper. So he's basically saying after a game when you're angry because you lost and because, I think he thought the LA Galaxy were going to certainly be within, somewhere near that game and ended up not being. But, he's saying he doesn't want to make decisions whenever he's in motion. He continued, he said, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it comes down to presence. And, if the keeper is going to get it, he's got to be loud and clear and early and take the ball. Otherwise, the guys who are zoning are going to attack the ball. And so between them, and I leave the goalkeeper as the guy who's most responsible in the situation, he needs to make that situation clear, talking about Novak Mitrovic making the situation clear. Look,
and when you have a team not scoring goals,
yes,
the goalkeeper's got to bail you out, and he seems to be going the other way.
He's also made some good saves. There's just, I would put less of the last two goals on Mitrovic, but I mean, you can have some critiques for sure. The second goal, which comes in the 47th minute, right, gets taken across. So right after halftime, gets taken across in front of or beside Yoshida, and Yoshida has to do a ton of work to try to get into position. Again, the LA Galaxy hurting themselves many times, Kevin, giving the ball away in poor positions, leading to quick transitions from St. Louis team who only wants quick transitions. They don't want the ball. And so they're getting into the quick transitions. The ball comes across Yoshida sort of to the near post as I was watching it. And the idea there for Yoshida, at least in my mind, is to make sure that he is guiding his defender away from goal as much as possible. And he needs to try to get in front of him as much as possible. But the bottom line is to narrow the angle for Mitrovic. So that way Mitrovic gets a chance to try and make a save. Bottom line, it gets roofed right over Mitrovic's shoulder. And I feel like, and if you go back and watch the play, Mitrovic definitely trying to cover the low angle there instead of just staying big and continuing to sort of come out. For me, right now, Mitrovic looks like he's too static. He's not moving enough. He's not coming out. He's not trying to cut down angles whenever he has the ability. And that was a chance that was in front of him for a long time, Kevin. He should have had, I think, a little more movement in what he was trying to do. We can go after Mitrovic all we want. The bottom line is the Galaxy's midfield has been so crap that they've been giving the ball away, and even the defense has been giving the ball away in bad positions. Midfielders have been giving it away in bad positions, and the counters are on. It's very similar to last year whenever the Galaxy wouldn't play well, as they were their own worst problems. And I think that's a tenet of Greg Vanney's system, is that if you're going to play with the ball, then you need to be fairly perfect with it. I mean, there's a lot of reasons people go to a counterattack system, right? One of the reasons they do it is because they don't want the ball. They don't want to be able to make those mistakes. If you stay behind the ball, which is what St. Louis did in that low block, certainly trying to clog things up for the LA Galaxy, you have more success sometimes whenever you're playing against a team that does want the ball. And the Galaxy got beat by it because they don't have the playmakers that they normally have. That being said, Kevin, in a low block, something that the LA Galaxy struggled with a lot last year whenever teams would go into low block against them, even with Paintsel, Peck, Puig, all those guys trying to create things. I thought the LA Galaxy were very, very good in trying to create on the night. Overall, they had an expected goals of 1.2, which is like 1.7, which is like quadruple what they've had. You can almost combine all their other XG, I think, in every other game they've had, and you won't get to 1.7. So the Galaxy a little unlucky not to have at least a goal there. And if they score first, which they have not done now, Kevin, in 4 straight games, they've allowed the first goal in every single game that they've played so far. If the LA Galaxy could get the first goal, I actually think this team could get some points. You watch this game, you see how they were able to sort of fold in on themselves. And again, we talked about them being fragile last year. I guess we're going to say that the LA Galaxy could be once again fragile in both possession and in mentality for the time being.
Well, and you look at how things went so good last year, unbeaten in all competition at Dignity Health Sports Park, never lost more than 1 game, never had a losing streak at all. This year, they've already lost 2 MLS games at Dignity Health Sports Park. They've lost 4 in a row overall. Last year, they didn't score goals in bunches. This year, they have 1 in 4 games. It couldn't be more 180 degrees different. It's the other end of the same coin. It's just amazing how different this season is so far. There were some boos at the end of that game. I think that's a little bit premature. This is the defending MLS Cup champions, and they are playing without 5 injured starters now.
Well, five players, 4 starters.
So, are they better than this? Yeah, but these games count. I mean, I get the frustration. These games count. And the Galaxy just really not showing much.
Yeah. Lasso, by the way, $10 super chat, says, "Evening, gents. Well, despite the tough start, I can see improvements, and I think we're getting quote unquote close. Just get a couple of the boys back, and smiley face there." Again, you're on the same wavelength as I am, which is this Galaxy team gets healthy and they will get better. And I think they're already getting better and they're developing. I mean, if you really want to go glass half full on this, you're getting guys like Harbor Miller. You're getting guys like Isaiah Parente. You're getting some of the younger players that are getting playing time in positions that maybe they wouldn't have got it, and that should pay dividends in the end. Greg Vanney talked about how because Harbor Miller has been so good, that he now has options whenever Yamane comes back. And by the way, injury update for Yamane, possible for Wednesday, probably unlikely, especially if it's going to rain, but more than likely this weekend at Portland, Yamane could be back. They're expecting Yamane back, it seems like, for Portland. So,
you put him on the turf?
Yes, you have to. This is the whole thing that we've sort of been talking. I mean, I wanted to go through the schedule because I didn't look at it again to see when the LA Galaxy. I think Seattle would be the next time that they actually have to play on turf. But other than that, I think they've covered all the turf fields in the Western Conference. And they're getting all of them in this first month. In this first 7 games, they get 2 out of the 3 that they're going to end up having to play on. So,
that's another thing we're talking about. Everything going against the Galaxy. You have that. You have the travel. You have the schedule, which is kind of insane. It's really front loaded the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Really busy, and again, a lot of travel. They could have gone to Salt Lake, but no, they had to go to Costa Rica instead. That's a big difference. It just seems like they're again. Marco Royce said it. They're just not getting any breaks. Nothing's going their way. Nothing that could go their way has gone their way so far.
Yeah, it seems that way. And then the other part is, somebody said. And I thought it was telling because it feels there's 7 games in March. We know that. Just in case you're playing along, the LA Galaxy have only played 3 of those 7 games. They still have 4 more games to play this month, which seems outrageous. Also, it's only the 10th day of the month, and they've already played 3 games. But they were saying, oh, well, the LA Galaxy should take this week off and they should train and they should figure out how they're going to come back. I'm like, wait a minute. There's not going to be any training this week. I go, because they play on Wednesday night. Basically, the guys will have done rest and recovery. They played Sunday, so rest and recovery on Monday. Some light walking tomorrow, Tuesday, and it's supposed to be raining. So they'll probably do a light walkthrough, do all that, and then they play again on Wednesday night. So, and then after they're done there, it'll be a rest and recovery day on Thursday. On Friday, it will be probably a pretty light regen session, that type of thing. Then you'll go into Saturday where it'll be early AM training, which will be more walkthrough than anything else because the bodies are going to be tired and sore. And they're flying probably on Saturday in the PM to go play in the Portland game that is at 1:45 on Sunday. So there's no rest, there's no recovery, there's no training. The LA Galaxy don't have that ability. Even Marco Royce, I think, was talking about it and said, we don't really get to train, so we'll watch some film and we'll get back out there. That's it. So for a team that needs to gel, playing games helps, but I'm sure you want some training time. For a team that's missing guys with injuries, you want sort of the rest recovery time, so that way you can get guys back without having to go through the games. and they just haven't been able to do it. Those are reasons. I know people would like to call those excuses, but those are reasons for why the LA Galaxy are where they are. The other part of that is cap space, construction of roster teams, and everything else. Marco Royce came out and flat out said, we're missing some guys' injuries, and some guys who are really good players are no longer here. I would imagine he's talking about Mark Delgado, which is the one that I think everybody right now would really like to have on the team. But these are the consequences, one, of being successful, and two, going all out for it in 2024, 100%.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark Delgado is playing very well for LAFC, and you really can't say, oh, well, he would have done that with the Galaxy. He's playing in a different system, probably motivated to show the Galaxy messed up by letting him go. There's a lot of different things going on there, but certainly he would have helped, especially given the injuries. He would have helped if the Galaxy had been able to keep them. I don't know how much you want to talk about the game on the CONCACAF Champions Cup game on Wednesday, but for me, given all the things that you just talked about and the heavy schedule, I mean, realistically, the Galaxy are not going to win Champions Cup no matter what. They're just not going to win it, not without Paintsville and Ricky Puig. So if they were to get past Herediano and go on, it would almost be kind of that would be, in my mind, that would not be the ideal situation for the Galaxy. Adding 2 more games next month, again, when they're injured, when guys are injured, adding more to the schedule, more travel, but who knows where they would go, but there'd be more travel involved. I think the best case scenario for the Galaxy would be to play this game very well on Wednesday, play it tight, maybe win the game 2-1, and so then they would be eliminated on the away goal, and then they go on their merry way and concentrate on MLS and not have to worry about travel and CONCACAF Cup games crowding the schedule next week. I do think they need to have a good effort. They need to play well. They need to feel good about themselves. Again, if they were able to get a win out of it, but be eliminated on aggregate on the away goal, that probably would be a good thing. Greg Vanny's not going to say that. None of the players are going to say that, but I think that would be sort of a best case scenario for the Galaxy. And maybe they wind up using that game as you can't use a game as a training session, but maybe Greg Vanny starts a couple of pairs, guys that need to sort of get on the same page, whether they're two center backs or a holding midfielder and a center back, get guys some reps together and get them communicating and getting them on the same page. And maybe since you can't train, maybe you do it in this game.
I get that. I will tell you right now, the Galaxy are going to try to win the game, 100%. And one of the reasons that I think that they're going to try to do that is that realistically, and this is going to be, some people are going to be like, no, that can't be true. The LA Galaxy put a roster together to try to compete in CONCACAF Champions Cup. The injuries have derailed that 100%. But the guys they went out and tried to bring in, the Nascimento, there's Sanabria, right? There's guys that they've been trying to bring, that they brought in specifically because they wanted to sort of compete in this CONCACAF Champions Cup. Bring in Christian Ramirez. The Galaxy prioritized, and I'm starting to float a little bit into the contract talk that I wanted to dig at too, the GAM, the TAM, and all that stuff. But the Galaxy prioritized, Kevin, making sure that their team was together before the start of this season. Much like they did last year, which paid them, a lot of dividends. It's just the bad luck. And somebody in the chat room said, and they've had bad luck. The bad luck with the injuries, the guys they had to move, all that stuff is definitely hitting them. By the way, Hector gave us a $10 super chat. We appreciate that. He said, what is the best scenario for the summer? Should the LA Galaxy have put Ricky as an season-ending injury for this year? We could have had a DP on loan for 1 year. You're not going to shut down Ricky. The bottom line is that regardless of what you think the LA Galaxy should have done, there would have been a restriction on how much they could have paid to get another designated player in, and they would have sidelined Ricky Puig possibly for the playoff run that everybody thinks is now impossible because the LA Galaxy lost 4 games. So no, I don't think that they should have put Ricky on. There is a chance that Ricky could be back in August. There's a chance, quite honestly, that he could be back in July. I don't know that that's going to happen, but the timetable is that wide and vast that you don't know what is going to happen. And I think the LA Galaxies, with the amount of money they're spending on Ricky Puig, remember, he still gets paid even though he's injured. And by the way, he should. I'm just telling you, the Galaxy outlay that money. So telling anybody that they're going to go out and get another designated player when the LA Galaxy are paying Ricky Puig $4 million would have been a real stretch for me. Certainly on the acquisition stuff, and it probably would have hurt in other acquisitions. Like you couldn't have had Sanabria or you couldn't have had Nascimento. We're talking about there is a fixed amount of money whenever all this comes through. And so you have to play what you're given. I think there's enough upside of Ricky Puig coming back in 2025 that you're never going to put him on the season-ending injury list. It wasn't going to happen. That's at least for me.
Well, and I think for me, the bigger point with Ricky is I don't think you replace Ricky. I mean, I think he is a unicorn. He's a very unique talent, and what he does for this team is very unique and very important. For better or for worse, the way the team played last year, I mean, everything went through Ricky. Ricky was sort of the motor that made it work, and I know that he missed 3 games, and I think they won 2 of them, but you're seeing the sort of the Ricky effect right now. So let's say you put him on season-ending injury list, and you get somebody else. I don't think that person's going to be Ricky. Yeah, sure, you have him for more time, but Ricky's going to come back in August, maybe September. I tend to think it's going to be earlier rather than later, so I'm going to go for August, maybe even late July.
Right, I know.
You're being optimistic.
Yep.
That is, you've just traded for Ricky Puig halfway through the season, and you're going to get a fresh Ricky Puig in the playoffs. I don't think, in any scenario, can you do better than that?
Yeah, I think the LA Galaxy are also of that particular thought process. Adam, $5 super chat says, what if the Galaxy get eliminated Wednesday? McCarthy won't get playing time anymore. Plus, Mitrovic is responsible for 5 of the 7 goals allowed this season. Adam, just a little much. I don't know that they're all 5. I can certainly find faults in a lot of things. But the other thing is, I think that people are being overly critical of Mitrovic right now, mostly because John McCarthy did nothing to lose his spot. So if you're going to come in and take John McCarthy's spot, you're going to have to be pretty dang near perfect. I'll say that the midfield has not helped out in a lot of that stuff. And so for me, I think the time is coming. Greg Vanney was pretty adamant in that Mitrovic deserves a chance to get some playing time and try to figure this out and to solve some problems along that way. And so I think that they're going to stick with Mitrovic as it goes right now. But having said that, the leash is not forever. And my whole thing that we were talking in the press box about, Kevin, was that the LA Galaxy need to get results. They also need to get healthy, but the results can't wait for the LA Galaxy to get healthy. It's totally unfair. It's not fair to ask what is going to be done, but Greg Vanney has to find a way to get some results out of a team that is missing 2 of 3 DPs, that is missing, a starting right back, that is missing the guy they brought in to sort of help out in the midfield whenever Mark Delgado left. They don't have those guys right now, and bringing back Joseph Paintsel is going to solve a lot of problems for this club, and until he gets back, the Galaxy are going to have to struggle a little bit.
Well, and they're not getting any help from their striker either. I mean, when Paintsel comes back, that'll help because all of a sudden defenses are going to have to play both wings. Right now they're just concentrating on Peck, and they're really not worried about what's going on in the center of the box. Miguel Berry has been probably better than Christian Ramirez, but neither one of them have been super dangerous. And nothing's happening on the other side with Fagundes so far. Joseph Paintsel will help that a lot, and I think free up some space for things to happen in the middle. But right now, this is one of those situations you hear athletes talk about it all the time. Next man up, or I had to, I had to pick my teammate up. I had to, he was struggling, and I had to come through for him. That's not happening right now. Ramirez is not helping take some of the pressure off Fagundes. Fagundes is not able to create enough distraction to open things up for Ramirez or Miguel Berry. It's sort of just, one problem is sort of piling on top of the other one.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. By the way, Werner says, $2 super chat, McCarthy was signing autographs for season ticket members post-game. Yep, I actually, on our way out, Alex and I poked our heads in to see who was signing, and it was John McCarthy, so that's always good. Let's see. Aaron. I'm looking for... Aaron had something in here that he wanted us to ask. Aaron, I'll look for it whenever the panda is talking here, but... No, it's just, these are the things. Again, I thought Marco Reus played his best game for the LA Galaxy all year. I think he was unlucky not to score. He was in good spots. He was slipping passes and combining. All of those things are positives for the LA Galaxy. The only negative is that score was 3-0, and there's nothing you can do to wipe that off of the scoreboard, right? You have to live with that. You have to sort of get that to what it is. So, is what it is at this point. The LA Galaxy got to find a way. I think the Herediano game provides at least something for the LA Galaxy to try and strive and do something. So, it's one of those. We will certainly keep an eye on the LA Galaxy. By the way, Adam, $5 super chat says, were you guys surprised at the attendance for yesterday's game? Absolutely not. Never going to be surprised about a Sunday night game at Dignity Health Sports Park. 19,000 something people there. The Galaxy have started poorly, but more importantly, it was on a Sunday night. And you keep continuing to have Sunday night games, and the Galaxy are going to have lower attendance. You do Saturday night games, and you're not going to have any problems at all. Sunday night games, you're going to have problems. 100%. The LA Galaxy have not played on Saturday, not once so far this season. So it's always been that. Kevin, you and I have talked about it. I know the Hammer and I have talked about it. Anybody, the bread and butter for the LA Galaxy is a Saturday night 7:30 game. 100% always is. We'll have a full house whenever you do it. You have the time change on the day too. So
I think the reason they're playing all these Sunday games is, they've started that Soccer Sunday thing on Apple TV where they want to have one sort of game of the week that they have on Sunday. And the Galaxy are defending champions, and look who they played so far. Their first game was against San Diego, the expansion team. Of course, you're gonna want to highlight that game. They had the Vancouver game. Now they're back home again. Galaxy coming back home, with St. Louis, the place where they didn't lose last season. So Apple has to make these decisions on the broadcast pretty early, certainly before the season starts. And they thought that this would be, the Galaxy would be the marquee team that they wanted to highlight. In some of the European leagues, I know, especially in the Premier League, the broadcasters get the choice to alter the schedule about a week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks out.
Right.
So if they decide that they had a game on a Sunday afternoon that they thought everybody would watch, and it turns out it's a real stinker matchup, they can change that a couple of weeks out. Maybe Apple would have done that with the Galaxy up to the slow start with all the, a lot of their best players injured, but they didn't, and that means the Galaxy is playing a lot of Sunday games. I don't think the attendance was affected by the way the team was playing. Maybe a little bit, but certainly not in any great form, because it's only their second MLS game at home. I don't think anyone is already making the decision that, we paid for these tickets, so we planned this excursion, we're deciding not to go. I don't think that was the case. I think, the stuff that you talked about, a time change, Sunday afternoon, a lot of other things going on. I don't think anyone who had considered going to a Galaxy game, I don't think they've given up on the team already.
No. Let's see. Other takeaways that we had from the game. Marco Reus sort of acknowledged that he has KT tape, Kevin, all down his leg, and has for quite some time. And he said it's just something that he continually has to deal with. I don't know if he flat out said that he has a problem, but I think it's just his age. Scott French was asking the question, and he was asking about the tape, and he goes, for someone, and he was trying not to say your age or your old, but there was no other way to say it. Marco was laughing whenever Scott was saying, he goes, you mean my age? And we're all laughing. We're like, yeah, your age. We get it, dude. We've seen the whole deal. But he was sort of talking about how he has to deal with that. And he said he feels good enough to play. And if he didn't feel good enough to play, he wouldn't be playing. So I think you're going to continue to see Marco Reus. I think you're actually going to see him on Wednesday night. Wouldn't be surprised if he starts again. Because I think right now the Galaxy want him out there, and he's been playing well enough that, certainly I think if you're a Galaxy fan, you want him out there. There was one really strange moment where fans were actually chanting, "We want Barry," which was Miguel Barry over Christian Ramirez. Christian Ramirez posting on Instagram and, saying, tough times, that type of thing. So we'll see. I'm sure he heard the "We want Barry" chants that came out of LA Riot Squad. He actually had a shot, I think, just almost right after that. So Alex Ruiz asked Greg Vanney afterwards if what he wanted to see out of Christian Ramirez, being that for the first time he got his first touch in the box in three games that he's played in Major League Soccer. It was the first time he got a touch in the box, and it was a shot on goal. So again, not great for the LA Galaxy. I do believe, and I think Greg Vanney sees it, and I certainly see it, and I said it afterwards, that this LA Galaxy team has shown some progress in the first 3 games, and that they are probably pretty close to winning something. I think they could beat Herediano. I think they could beat Portland. Portland's going to be harder. I think it's actually going to be easier for them to beat Herediano, but it's supposed to rain. The over-under on attendance, I know people were playing. I'm putting the over-under on attendance for that game at like 7,500, Kevin. I think there's zero chance anybody shows up for that game.
Well, LAFC got about 8,000 for a game with Columbus, so you might be right. One thing that's interesting about Marco Reus, some of the comments he made were very interesting, because it's like, we need to win, we need to do this. The most interesting one, I think, is when he said last year is over, last year no longer matters. And he did come to the press conference afterwards. It's not like he's avoided it. I don't know how many times we've asked for him, but he hasn't been the guy that we talk to every week, like Maya Yoshida. He hasn't put himself out there. And the fact that he did this time, and the fact that he made the comments that he made, and the fact he talked about, we need to win, we need to get beyond this. We need to stop talking about last year. Keep your eye on Marco Reus. I think you're probably right. I think maybe he does start Wednesday. Maybe he does start in Portland. Maybe he thinks that, hey, he's the guy. He's the veteran. He's the guy they brought in from Borussia Dortmund, the guy with the Champions League experience, the guy that was on Germany's World Cup champion team until he got hurt. Maybe he feels like, hey, I'm going to take this team by the scruff of the neck, and I'm going to turn this thing around by myself, just simply by willpower. I would keep an eye on him. I think there's something going on with Marco Reus that he feels like he needs to step up, and this team needs to follow him.
I agree. I think he is taking it. The other thing is that we did request Marco Reus. Like, we don't request him very often, mostly because he hasn't played a whole bunch, really, whenever we've watched. He's been a bit player. There's other guys sort of be talked about. He's being asked to be the main guy right now, Kev. And because he's being asked to be the main guy, I think it's important that he talks more, and I think he will. I don't think he's shying away from that. Scott, of course, afterwards commented on how good Marco Reus's English was for all that, which was always nice, and it is. And Marco seems very comfortable talking to us, and so I think we'll continue to ask for him. So it was good. Harbor Miller also talked. Harbor Miller, class act. Love that kid. If you're telling me he's 17, I want to see a birth certificate because. He seems like he's like 25. He's more mature than you and I. That's for sure, Kevin. So we'll continue to watch him as he goes. But Harbor Miller was one of my takeaways as well. Again, another solid performance. I want to get to close out the game, and I want to get to some of this GAM and TAM talk. And sort of see how we can explain some things, because I was able to talk to some people. I was able to get you some answers, and I will tell you that the answers that I have here are none that I have seen published before, so you are getting inside information the best that I can give it to you, and in the best way that I can give it to you. MLS came out with a chart that basically showed how much everybody had in general allocation money. Remember, at the beginning of the season, for the first time ever, we saw a general allocation money coming through for the very first time of how much each team has. And we started the general allocation money tracker so that way we could sort of track it and sort of figure out where it all goes. Well, they published the chart on Friday, and they put it out as of February 28th. They said, hey, this is how much general allocation money each team has. Remember, everybody had to be roster compliant for the start of the season. So basically, you had to spend your general allocation money, which is what it's used for, to pay down against the caps. That way you were roster compliant. And so they go through there. And so Atlanta United has, $1.1 million in general allocation money. And you can find other teams like New York Red Bulls have $1.6 million in general allocation money. And again, if you want to make a comparison and sort of see, New York Red Bulls went to an MLS Cup last year, and they still have $1.6 million in general allocation money to sort of go out and spend. And there's reasons for that. We can certainly peg what is happening with the LA Galaxy to some punishment for being a successful team. And certainly you look at bonuses and things that happen. All the bonuses are to the max if you win an MLS Cup. We all know that. But the surprising thing for most people, and I found it surprisingly awesome, was that the LA Galaxy had exactly $0 in general allocation money, meaning that they had used all of their general allocation money in making sure that the roster was compliant. Now, there's a couple things that I can share with you. One is that the LA Galaxy prioritized, and I am 100% serious whenever I say this, prioritized having this team put together before the start of the season. It worked for them last year. They were hoping that it would work from this year, and they had the added pressure of the CONCACAF Champions League. So, you look at all the moves they made with Gaston Brugman going off. You look at the moves with Mark Delgado going off, Dejan Joveljic, and all the things that sort of happened. The LA Galaxy were making moves in order to get money so that way they could be roster compliant and still replace the guys like bring in guys like Nascimento and bring in Lucas Sanabria, and those were sort of going to be the guys that they wanted to focus on and bring in at those U22 spots to get a lot of action out of them. But if you'll notice on here, there aren't too many other teams that have $0. Now, FC Cincinnati only has $6,400. So it's not like whenever you're looking at the breadth of leagues of everything that's going on, that there aren't other teams that are basically in a similar situation as the LA Galaxy. FC Cincinnati, for all intents and purposes, Kevin, is 100% the same boat as the LA Galaxy. They have $6,400. You can't do anything with $6,400. whenever you're talking about players that cost, millions and millions of dollars, right? That type of thing, or even in the $400,000 range. So the LA Galaxy getting into that jam position of 0. One is, I will say this, in a lot of ways, you want your teams to be as efficient as possible whenever it comes to the general allocation money and what you're trying to do. So you want them to spend a large portion of the general allocation money. That means that they put the money into the roster and that they have now made that roster compliant. Remember, the general allocation money pays down the budget charges of those 1 through 20 players. Every player has a budget charge, all in all of the senior roster, and those budget charges get paid down in order to be compliant for the salary cap. And our salary cap right now for this year is going to be $5.95 million, if I remember that correctly. And that's for senior roster spots 1 through 20. So you want to see the LA Galaxy going out and spending the money for this and doing that stuff. That being said, it does limit flexibility. Let's talk about what flexibility the LA Galaxy have, because I think that's an important one. Kevin, right now, the LA Galaxy have $0 in general allocation money. I made a comment because people were asking about TAM. I go, it doesn't mean that they don't have any TAM. And so it is something that we certainly could find out. Well, I did find out how much TAM the LA Galaxy have, and the answer to that is also 0, right? So the LA Galaxy have maxed out GAM and maxed out TAM. That means in terms of roster flexibility and what they need to do, they would have to get quote unquote creative in order to bring in another player. Whether that's summertime or anything else, it means you'd have to move somebody in order to bring somebody else in, because you need to generate the cash to be able to put them on the roster and have them fit into the salary cap. So right now the LA Galaxy had 0 GAM, approximately 0 TAM. So there's not any giant move that's sort of waiting in the wings for anything to happen. And so if you're expecting the LA Galaxy to go out and make a summer move right now, with how it stands, there's technically no money for a summer move, but that doesn't mean, and that's far from accurate to say that they won't make a summer move. So you just have to sort of watch the space and how it goes. All right. So anything that stands out as crazy to you so far, Kevin?
Well, no, you had talked earlier this season about how the exact amount of money that you want to have in TAM and JAM is 0, because you don't want to have any money still on the table when you could have used that to improve the team. I understand the logic of that, but having a little bit squirreled away to make a summer move, you can make an argument for that too. But the rules have changed now, and I don't know what Will Kuntz is thinking, and I, to be honest, I don't know where the loopholes are in all these new rules. But let's just say you had a chance to bring somebody in, someone that you thought was a real valuable piece to bring in the summer transfer window. My understanding is you could still make an in-league trade. In other words, move some salary off, create some space in the salary cap, and bring somebody in. Maybe. Yes. So, there is it's not like you can't do it's not like you're stuck until December. You can't do anything. You would just have to get super creative, and that player that you're trying to bring in would have to be, the real deal, would have to be somebody incredible. I understand why you might want to prepare for that, but because you don't want to miss an opportunity. But at the same token, what if that guy never materializes? Right. And then you finish the season with millions of dollars in allocation money that you didn't spend because we were waiting for somebody who never showed up.
Yeah, it is 100%. You have to sort of gauge how this goes. Listen, I'm not saying the Galaxy are in a good spot by having $0 in general allocation money. In fact, it puts them in a tight spot, especially what it was. But there are some contributing factors to that. One contributing factor, of course, is the LA Galaxy still have some quote-unquote bad contracts on the books. We can talk about 2, and I'll tell you about 2. One is Chase Gasper. The LA Galaxy are still paying $400,000 to Chase Gasper. He no longer plays for the LA Galaxy. I forget which team he went to, but he is no longer with LA. But the LA Galaxy, because they picked up his contract, still are paying him $400,000. That $400,000 hits the salary cap, Kevin. That is a player. That is a mid-level player that you could spend $400,000 on and put him in, right? So that's something that's pretty interesting. The Galaxy still have to pay that out. The other one is not a salary cap hit, but is a real cash hit. And that is that the LA Galaxy are paying $1 million for Kevin Cabral right now. And that will continue. I think that ends this year. But that will continue, through this year. But that's $1 million in real cash. And while real cash doesn't hit the jam side of things, it doesn't hit the TAM side of things, it does hurt in terms of acquisition costs, right? If you're going after somebody like Sanabria, or you're going after Nascimento and you want $1 million, well, you're spending $1 million on Kevin Cabral, so you can't really go to, Phil Anschutz and say, hey, can I have another $1 million? And he's going to tell you, you're spending $1 million on Kevin Cabral. So those things still hurt. And those are things that are trying to be cleaned up. And I think that as you're looking, that those are some of the things that sort of explain. There's other things in there that we can talk about that also explain some of this. And that is, looking at Diego Fagundes, looking at Marco Reus, and how much money, even as TAM players, they hit the salary cap. And so those salary cap numbers are still a lot of money. So the Galaxy paying, and listen, they went after those guys. They decided to keep those guys. So it's not a surprise to them that they're costing that much, but those are a significant hit to the cap. Whenever you look at those guys, the other thing is that you have transfer fees, right? So we talked about this before, but it was always assumed that transfer fees, Kevin, were paid out over the life of the contract whenever you got it. And that's how MLS amortized those. But that's not how it goes. As a matter of fact, we know that this year the Galaxy will have to pay more for Emi Garces, who is technically a TAM player, but more for Emi Garces because his transfer money is more this season than it was last season, right? So that's something. Miki Amane, his transfer fee the LA Galaxy paid is more money this year than last year. That's a cap hit that affects the LA Galaxy. So those types of things. John McCarthy got a raise. That's a cap hit, right? So again, you're talking about a goalkeeper who won an MLS Cup, who got a raise because of the contract that he was in, right? So the contract was a known quantity, and he has a higher number now. You think maybe that explains stuff, maybe it doesn't explain stuff. But again, it's a cap hit that you have to account for, and you have to deal with whenever you do it. The other part about this is a little more obscure, but we had talked about, Kevin, that whenever the LA Galaxy sold Dejan Joveljic, that they had the chance of they got $4 million from Sporting Kansas City. That was real cash, but they had the chance of converting 3 of that $4 million into general allocation money, right? And did that make sense? We talked about that before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but we didn't know how much the LA Galaxy actually converted. And I told you I knew that they didn't convert all of it. And so I made an estimate of $1 million that the Galaxy converted because I didn't know, so it was sort of a guess. I can tell you I know that number now. It's $650,000. The LA Galaxy converted... Not even $1 million.
That's something. Yeah.
Right. So realistically, whenever you look at that, that's about $2.35 million the LA Galaxy could have also converted into general allocation money. There's reasons they didn't do that. They had to have some acquisition costs that they wanted to go out and get, like Nascimento, bringing him in. And they also had contract buyouts, and they also... Kevin, if I come to you, this is a good one to use you with. If I come to you and I say... Hey, so I'm a general manager. You're an owner of a team. Okay. I would like $20 million. Because I'm going to go out and buy this guy, Joseph Paintsel. I'm going to buy this guy, Gabriel Pec, and we're going to put together this awesome roster this year. We're going to go out and win you an MLS Cup. But here's the deal: is I'm not going to ask you for any more money. Hey, we're doing all this thing. So we sort of make that agreement. So eventually, whenever I've sort of laid it out for you that I'm not going to come and ask you for any more money. So the next year, I'm going to have to sell things in order to post profit or put money back into the kitty, so that way we can continue to go on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what Will did with Uncle Phil.
So that's the idea. So whenever they didn't convert all the general allocation money, there's a business decision that has to be made with that. Some of that is probably Will, some of that is probably to Phil Anschutz, and they have to decide how they're going to use that money. And so in this particular case, I'm sure they would have liked to convert $3 million of that $4 million. And if you imagine, if I take you from zero right now, Kevin, and I put you into $2.35 million worth of jam, you're suddenly feeling a lot better about everything, right? Like you're like, there's summer moves to be made, there's things, but because they knew that they wanted to, one, maybe buy out contracts, or two, bring in Nascimento and also post a profit back to the bank, right? You borrowed this money from Phil. You want to give him back some of his money. This is that posting a profit. You're making a money off a player on Joveljic, right? And so because of that, the Galaxy converted only $650,000. I'm sure they would have liked to have more money than that. I'm sure they would have liked to convert it. And by the way, it's not like you can go back and decide that you're going to convert some of it later, Kevin. You have to decide at the time of the deal that how much general allocation money you're going to do. And in fact, you have to notify the league of how much general allocation money you should have. It's one of the numbers the league should absolutely publish and put out there. But it is that, so that's it. So we could have known this, a long time ago, especially as they're trying to be more open and transparent with GAM. This is the next step for those intra-league trades that are real money. How much is being converted to general allocation money? So yeah, that's
there's so much of this financial stuff that in every sport that's sort of it's just not transparent. It's not obvious. It's not talked about. For example. Going back to being here for spring training, everyone knows Shohei Ohtani is the largest contract in baseball history. It's huge. And yes, he deferred a lot of those payments. But I was talking to someone at Dodger camp today, and the Dodgers might actually turn a profit on that contract. You're talking about trying to give money back to Phil. They might actually turn a profit on that contract because Ohtani is bringing so many Japanese advertisers to the Dodgers. It's just insane how many companies want to advertise with the Dodgers during their games now and be in the program and do all these kind of sponsorships with the Dodgers that they're giving Ohtani almost $800 million, and they might make a profit off it at the end of the deal. So when you look at the way some of the financial things that the Galaxy do, it's really not that different from other sports. There's a lot of thinking that goes into it that we don't know anything about. And remember, too, with Joveljic, when you talk about the money that was able to be converted, that's one reason he stayed in MLS instead of going to Mexico, where the Galaxy, I believe, the talks were they would have gotten more money, but it would have been converted in a different way. So it was smarter for them to actually keep him in MLS, where they play against him twice a year, than it was to send him to Mexico.
Well, and there also was, I think, in some of that we have to look at is how you would get paid, like when that money would be available, right? So sometimes, like, with other teams, you say, well, I'm going to pay you $5 million, but I'm going to pay you $1 million this year, $3 million next year, and $1 million the year after, right? Because it works better, right? So the whole deal. So the Galaxy got all $4 million from Sporting Kansas City right away. So there could have been a priority there on getting the money and the cash there. But bottom line is, we know what that number is now. We can actually go and put it on the Jam tracker and track it that way. But the LA Galaxy finished out with about $3.566 million in general allocation money before they had to use that against the roster. So we know what those numbers are now. We have never known these numbers. This is a marquee day and event. I mean, for the most part, we have to guess correctly and make sure that we have all that money that the MLS says. So the Galaxy started with 2.4 million. They ended with 3.5, and they used it all 3.5 to go against the salary cap and to be cap compliant for that. So that's the take. That's your Jam. That's your Tam. The LA Galaxy don't have any Jam. They don't have any Tam. But there is still, I think, some flexibility with them if they want to get creative and do things. Now, Kevin, in order for them to want to get creative and do things, the LA Galaxy have to start winning games, because right now they are, and I was told this as in my conversations, and I think it's a fair conversation to sort of share, which was, the LA Galaxy believe that when this team is healthy, that this is a playoff plus team. Right? They think that they can be a very dangerous team. They're not healthy right now, and they need to, and they'll get back, and they'll do it. But the pressure is going to start mounting for them to get wins, whether that's Will, whether that's Greg, or anybody else. The pressure will be there. Yes, they won an MLS Cup last year. Yes, you can't take that 6 star off the jersey. It's impossible. It will never come off. But having said that, you can't go and lose 34 games, right? Not that I think they're going to, but it goes without saying that if a losing streak continued, there would be pressure put on ownership to do something to right the ship and right the situation. The Galaxy need to get healthy, but besides getting healthy, they need to gel and come together as well. So it's a lot of stuff going on, Kevin. It seems like it's a busy time of year.
Well, and it's hard not to think. Again, 4 games into the season, got a long way to go. Was last year an aberration? Because the Galaxy were coming off their worst, 7-year streak in franchise history, without having appeared in an MLS Cup, only twice even making it to the playoffs. Then all of a sudden they win an MLS Cup last year and have an amazing season, break all kinds of records. All the goals they scored, unbeaten at home. And then I've already had some fans message me and say, this feels a lot like 2017. And no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel anything like 2017, other than perhaps the results. But you do have to think, was last year an aberration? Everything did seem to go right. Can they recapture that, or should we just expect that this is a 7th, 8th place team and they'll get in the playoffs and maybe do something there? But we shouldn't be talking about them getting back into the Supporter Shield race this season.
Yeah, well, by the way, Jay says, do you think the playoffs are still in reach? Absolutely. 9 teams make the playoffs. You have plenty of time. Go on a run, win some games, you'll be fine. Sports Lover says, I know it's early in the season, but how big of a hole do you want them to dig? I don't know what you're doing over there. Are you wrestling a tiger or something like that? Like, what could possibly be happening on your end of the phone that I have to hear every move you make?
Every move? I'm not making any moves.
That's the really scary part. Wait till your homework will be to actually listen to a podcast for once. Listen to this one, all right, and hear what you sound like over there. But no, dig themselves a hole and to play catch up this year. Listen, you don't want them to. You don't want them to dig any more holes. You don't want them to lose any more games. Bottom line is, if you've been watching, they're getting better. And with all the things that have happened so far this year, I think that's okay. I think that they're going to be okay. I don't know if they're going to be great, but the Galaxy certainly think that there's a chance that they could be great. Let's get to some more super chats because I had this. Soul gave us a $1 super chat. We certainly appreciate that. We go over to Adam. Adam, $5 super chat. The next home game is March 29th, Churro Fest. After is away to RSL, then home to Houston for 2024 replica ring giveaway. Houston is still winless. The bottom line is that those are all good reasons for people to show up and actually go to the to the games. So I imagine that they'll be fine. It's Chris, $5 super chat. If we crash and burn, Top Gun reference, out of CCC, can we let go of a goalkeeper or two? There's a real question mark about what they could do, who they could move, and when that could happen. I don't have any insight on it, just knowing that we've been talking about it, that there are 3 goalkeepers. 3 starting caliber goalkeepers probably for the LA Galaxy, with JC Marcinkowski in there as well. John McCarthy is there. We just talked about his raise. He makes him McCarthy probably makes himself the most attractive person to move. But if you're the LA Galaxy, he's probably your number 1 starter. But we're gonna have to watch with that as well. Sold $2 super chat. What about Chris Mavinga? Is he still with the LA Galaxy? I don't believe he is being paid anymore. At least it wasn't a name that got brought up to me. But it doesn't mean that he isn't, because I certainly didn't ask about him specifically, but I imagine it would have been mentioned. Brandon, $2 super chat. Thoughts on the "we want Barry" chants from Ramirez, or whenever Ramirez spot was out there on the field. I think we talked about it a little bit too soon. Numbers actually say that they're fairly similar in terms of their production, which is nothing. The LA Galaxy need a lot more stuff to talk about. So yeah.
Well, all those questions about how big of a hole can the Galaxy get out of, and how are they going to dig themselves out. It's a 34-game regular season, so it's not 82 games like the NBA and NHL. It's not 162 games like baseball. So the Galaxy aren't going to fall too far behind. They can't by the number of games. However, on the flip side of that, there's fewer games that they have to come back. So I don't, we're not going to look at them getting into some huge hole where they have to go on a long unbeaten streak to get back into it. But there has to be a little bit of urgency. Maybe after the Champions Cup game, when they get back into MLS play, they are going to have to start getting some points. They can't let this thing go on too long.
Yeah, no, they can't. Then that was sort of the whole point, is that you can't wait for the results to catch up to the injuries, right? You have to start getting results now, and then as the injuries you hopefully get a better team that comes back. So I'm sort of waiting for that as well. By the way, lots of comments on your headshot that I put up, because they think it's from 1987. I'm pretty sure this is like a... I don't know which one this is from the LA Times, Kevin, but I've had it for a while, so it's at least 5, 6, 7 years old, for sure.
No,
but
you got to put a picture of a panda up there.
I don't think anybody would find that entertaining, but we will certainly see.
It's got to look better than the real me.
Oh no, this one looks like this one looks like you're a nightclub owner in Miami Beach. That's the only way I can sort. This feels very Miami of you. Were you just coming off of Miami whenever you showed up? Because you sort of have that vibe to you.
Well, I might have been a nightclub owner in Miami. You don't know about my past.
That's right. I do not, 100%. The LA Galaxy.
But
go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're talking about, how the Galaxy can turn it around and when they have to turn it around. I do think there's some urgency, but I also agree with you that despite the result, it might have been their best game. Again, take away those 2 balls that hit the post, and yes, every team hits the post, but the Galaxy are really, really in dealing with some really unfortunate luck right now. those two go in, maybe they go in August, but those two go in and all of a sudden it's a different game, and maybe the Galaxy win that one. Statistically, I think they were the better team. You were there, you saw it, and you said you thought it was their best game of the year. So, maybe that's the baby step forward that leads to something bigger next weekend.
It very well could. I mean, that's sort of what we're all waiting to see, sort of how that takes off and goes. Let's real quickly get you ready for the Herediano match. Again, it's supposed to rain on Wednesday night. This game's 7:30, about a 7:40 p.m. kickoff time is what we're expecting at Dignity Health Sports Park. Herediano has to travel almost the 3,000 miles, almost 6-hour flight to get up to Dignity Health Sports Park for this. I don't think the rain will affect them. I imagine Costa Rica is green because they get a lot of rain. Could just be a bad observation on my point, but that's usually where I lean on stuff whenever you look at countries that are super green. Usually means they have rain, so I don't think that'll work. That'll be a problem. Again, we talked about it. Herediano will come in and basically be up 1-0 in this game. There are no away goals that have been scored yet, so there is no advantage, but if Herediano does score an away goal, they will use that as a tiebreaker through the rest of them. We went through some of those results that could possibly happen, and I will certainly tweet them out again as we get closer, that whether the Galaxy will advance or not. Just a reminder, the LA Galaxy had a ton of possession the last time these two clubs played, and apparently it did not mean anything for LA, who failed to score, but only giving up that one goal. There are times where it looked like the LA Galaxy were definitely the better team in these two. You had Aude, who had a good match in this, and you had Garces, who had a really good match, and Garces has been a pretty solid, he's been one of the best players for the LA Galaxy. Quite honestly, he has a Defender of the Year a nomination coming up. It seems the way he's playing, as long as he doesn't kill people whenever he does it. His head collision with Maya Yoshida was certainly a scary one, and Maya was not happy about that, but hopefully that gets a little bit better here as everything goes on.
You think this game has a chance to get chippy? It seemed like the last 10 or 15 minutes in Costa Rica got a little intense and seemed to be a little bit of bad blood between a few players.
Yeah, I mean, there very well could be some it's anything. It's one of those. By the way,
Audi was involved in a couple of the scrapes.
Yeah, well, it was soft. Listen, it's CONCACAF refereeing. Everything will be, I believe it's mostly general admission. This game will be on FS1 in case you're looking for it. So FS1, I have Seasons Pass on here, but it's FS1. So make sure that you pay attention to that and look for that. But more than likely, you should be at this game, even in the rain, because how often do you get to watch a soccer game in the rain? Bring your rain jacket, get up under the covers. I believe it's general admission, so you can find a good spot where you won't get wet. And then we'll sort of see how that plays out for this game. Listen, it's always fun, Kevin. We always try to talk about must-win games. Guess what? This is a must-win game for the LA Galaxy, and even winning this particular game will not mean that they advance, but trying to win on aggregate obviously advances them into the next round, and it would be, I think it's still beneficial to the LA Galaxy to get another round of play in CONCACAF Champions Cup. But again, I was talking with some of the reporters. We were talking about CONCACAF Champions Cup and whether or not how many people would be there. And I said not many, because this is a third-rate tournament and everybody knows it. It may be the Continental Cup. It may be the closest thing that CONCACAF has to a UEFA's Champions League, but it is far removed from UEFA's Champions League. And so because it's a third-rate tournament, because of all that, I don't expect attendance will be very high. It's midweek. It's raining. I will see you there, of course. I think, Kevin, you're going to be there too, right?
I am. I'm going to land Wednesday morning and then head off to the stadium. Now, doesn't the winner of the tournament get an automatic berth into the FIFA Club World Cup?
Yeah, doesn't the winner of Major League Soccer every year except for the last year get an automatic berth to the Club World Cup? I'm just waiting for them to change it again, right?
The winner of MLS does not get a berth in the Club World Cup. They do if they have a guy named Messi on the team, and if they don't, then whatever team does have said player named Messi, then they get to go.
100%. So yeah, that'll be yes, but you are right. Club World Cup berth is on the line. A lot of people in the chat room, just get a W. Patrick says, just get a W. Any W, doesn't matter how it happens. I don't care if the ball goes and bounces off Greg Vanney in the sideline and nobody sees it and somehow rolls over the goal line. The Galaxy just need that W. They need the 3 points, even though it won't even count toward their league. But if they can get past Herediano, I think that starts to build some confidence. Let's see. I'm going to look one more time for Aaron to try to figure out. Aaron, you just want me to, it's not yours. He wants me to read a super chat that apparently isn't his, but it's from right above his. So let me see if I can find it one more time. Is it the I Got Jams one, which says Garces plays like a wild horse. He's fast, but he gets caught in bad positions regularly. Almost costs Yoshida his season. I mean, we talked about a lot of things with Garces. He has been the best player for the LA Galaxy this year. Gabriel Pec has probably been the second best player for the LA Galaxy this year. Garces can chase down people like it's not even hard. He eats up real estate, two or three hard steps. Alex Ruiz and I were watching him specifically just the whole game, just trying to watch how he defended the whole deal. The thing with Garces is he is wild. He will put himself in bad situations. He will get his pocket picked. He got his pocket picked in this game. Especially whenever he gets over in the corner and there's tight spaces, he tends to give the ball up. And whenever he gives up the ball, a lot of times that puts the LA Galaxy in bad situations. His lack of communication caused the head-to-head collision between him and Maya Yoshida, which looked like it was going to break Garces' nose and maybe end Maya Yoshida's season. So that has to get better. He's still raw. Somebody's going to pay a lot of money for him. He very much could be a Defender of the Year candidate.
Here's an idea. I mean, I guess his best position is center back, and that's the one that he played in the MLS Cup, but he played so well and probably deserved the MVP award that went to Guesman Brugman instead. But given the fact that Paintstill is not out there and that Fagundes is not nearly the speed demon that Paintstill is, and that you need to have some speed on that side of the field opposite Pec to kind of take some of the pressure off Pec. Defenses are collapsing on him. What do you think about the idea of putting Garces out on a wing, let him play, outside back, and let him just run up and down the field? Obviously he can do it. Defenses would have to pay attention to him. Maybe some overlapping runs with Fagundes. Don't take Fagundes out of there. He's still dangerous too. But maybe Garces is sort of use him in a slightly different way. Maybe that's the missing ingredient.
No. You can do it without
Okay.
You can't do it with Garces. Garces does not have the crossing ability, and we certainly see that. And he gets flustered in tight passing situations. He has speed. He has that ability. That's the only thing you're going to get out of him. I'm not saying you can't develop him that, but for me, no, he's not going to be. He's not. I don't think you can do it. I've watched him be put in sort of these offensive positions and watched him struggle in those offensive positions. So I think he's perfect where you want him. And the way the Galaxy play is the right back presses up anyway. Harbour Miller was playing way up on offense as we're getting way back on defense. Quite honestly, putting Harbour Miller at winger is a better option right now than putting Garces there. That type of thing. But again, for Gabriel Pec and what he's doing, he was creating a ton of shots. I think he had 7 shots or 5 shots on the night, on the game. He's creating plenty. He's just not bearing. And by the way, he 100% missed a wide open screamer that could have got the Galaxy back in that game. Greg Vanny talked about it afterwards and said that, really that's one that Pec should, 9 times out of 10 buries. But yeah, he missed it. So that's sort of the way the LA Galaxy are going. Pec is normally the guy who finishes those things. That's how it sort of takes. How it sort of goes.
7 shots and missing an open net. He, like everyone else, is pressing and trying to turn things around by themselves. And maybe Marco Reus is the one guy with the experience and he's been in big situations. He's seen teams struggle. Maybe he's the guy that kind of knows how to do it, because what's Pec 23 now? When you're trying to turn a struggling team around, a championship team around, what happens is you make more mistakes than you do things right, because you're pressing.
Right.
Maybe Marco Reus again. Marco Reus is my pick for the guy that sort of picks this team up and turns it around and puts it back on the right track. I think some of the younger players are trying too hard right now.
Don't worry, if you go on Twitter right now, Marco Reus is the worst player ever in the history of the LA Galaxy. He's being compared to Giovanni Dos Santos. Let's see, I'm trying to remember who else he was compared to, but it was fun. I love seeing the overreaction.
Worse than Shelvik?
Yeah, I think possibly worse than Shelvik, apparently. Who knows? I try to keep up. I'm telling you right now, Marco Reus is not the problem for this team. The problem for this team is that they still have too many injuries. They need that other winger. And right now, the guy who I'd really like to see do something, because I think he's been trying, but it just hasn't quite clicked yet, and I thought it might have clicked on Sunday, was Diego Fagundes. Need to see a little more from him as well. So, the Galaxy just need a little more. The win is coming, but you got to score first, just once. 4 games, haven't scored first. I did run into somebody from the LA Galaxy whenever I was using the restroom real quick, and we were discussing some things, and I said, hey, if you talk to Greg Vanny, tell him I think he should try to score goals first. And he goes, yeah, I'll run that right down the chain for everybody. So if Greg is listening, Greg, score goals first. I hear it helps. So.
Here's an interesting fact. I'll lay some of this on you. If you don't score a goal, you can't win.
100%.
The best you can do is draw.
That's right. 100%. As Greg Vanny likes to say, and even he says this overplayed, is goals change games. All right. Goals change games. And in this particular game, the goals did change the games. Galaxy schedule coming up has the LA Galaxy obviously at home to Herediano, away to Portland on the turf carpet there at 1:45 p.m. on Sunday, because it's another Sunday game, because of course it is. And then you get Minnesota away at 1:30 p.m. on the 22nd, and then they close it out on the 29th at home to Orlando City. Still a lot of soccer to be played, one in this season. And then, of course, also in this month, the best sort of one-liner I saw was, and I guess it wasn't a one-liner because it's two sentences. The good news is it's a long season, Kevin, and the bad news is that it's a long season, right? So it's
well, if you take a look at the Western Conference standings right now, they really look like they're upside down.
They feel like it, right? They feel like it for sure. For sure. The Galaxy sitting on 15th. I figured that everybody didn't need to see the LA Galaxy being at the very bottom of the entire table right now at 15th. So I
don't think any team has given up more goals either.
No, I mean they've been leaking like a sieve, so it wouldn't surprise me. All right, let's get on out of here, Kevin. Anything else that you have? Anything from the land of the Sun Devil over there?
No. I'm going to go visit the Josh Guesman's shrine again tomorrow. So if you want me to take some pictures,
up on A Mountain there. A Mountain. One of my fun stories I have from Tempe was, a young 18-year-old, and so I was with some of my friends from class, and we're like, what would be a lot of fun? We're going to go ahead and we're going to climb up A Mountain. A Mountain is a mountain that sits basically in the city of Tempe. It has a giant A on it for Arizona State, and as is always fun, you go up there and paint the A whenever it's for games, and then other teams, especially from the University of Arizona, come up and try to paint the A whenever it's the rivalry game, the whole deal. So we do that. So it was just a random day. It was like a random Friday, and somebody goes, "Hey, we should go get some cigars and go up to the top of A Mountain and smoke cigars, and then we could come back down." That was our big, bright idea. So we went off and did that, Kevin. We were all not in that good a shape. So we hiked our butts up to A Mountain. I basically almost had like an asthma attack on the way up because I was playing some soccer at the time, but wasn't a whole bunch. I wasn't in that great a shape. And so we get up there. We're all huffing and puffing. And so what do we decide to do but smoke cigars when we get to the top? And I feel like I almost died that night, just trying to get back down, coughing. And, I don't smoke either. So that should be fairly good. Kids, by the way, don't smoke cigars. Don't smoke. Just let it go.
That story didn't end the way I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to end with you guys starting a forest fire
on
the top of the mountain.
No, remember Arizona State's in the desert. There's not much you can light on fire, all right? It's just a desert. All the trees there are like, fake, so you don't have to worry about it. Cactus. There are a lot of cacti. So for sure. All right. If you are looking for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, if you're looking for those NASCAR hits, you're looking for that spring training over there at the LA Times, head on over LATimes.com or at KBaxter11 on all the social media platforms. That's where you can find him. And please go support his journalism as he's away from home in the wonderful land of Tempe. They're doing all that fun coverage. If you're looking for me on any of the socials at Galaxy Podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. I have notes and quotes up there. You might find that interesting. You might not. We'll see if I continue to do it. If I have some time, I always like throwing some things up on cornerofthegalaxy.com. And then, of course, Spotify, iTunes, any of those places where you can find podcasts, you can find us. So please go subscribe, support, all that fun stuff. Subscribe on YouTube. We always appreciate it. All right. For the LA Galaxy coming back home on Wednesday night in the rain against Herediano in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That one's on FS1. Be sure to check that one out. And then, again, away this weekend at Portland. For Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh, Pat Guesman, and you've been listening. You've been watching the Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.